The station floated in the darkness of space, spinning slowly around a star that had died long ago. It was called Station Unity, and it was the most important place in the galaxy. Inside its crystal walls, 200 different species gathered to make decisions that affected trillions of lives. Today, they were here to judge humanity. Ambassador Hyun-Woo Park stood in the center of the Great Hall, his hands clasped behind his back. He wore the formal uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps, dark blue with silver trim. Around him, the representatives of the Galactic Council sat in their assigned seats arranged in a perfect circle. Some had faces he could recognize. Others were so alien that he could barely tell where their eyes were. The Velborn sat to his left. They looked like tall, pale humanoids with too many joints in their arms. Their skin glowed faintly blue. They had been in space for 30,000 years and thought of themselves as the wisest species in the galaxy. To his right sat the Krell, massive creatures covered in thick armor plating. They controlled the largest military force in known space. Their representative, a being whose name Hyun-Woo couldn't pronounce, watched him with eyes that reminded him of a predator sizing up prey. Behind them were the Ascendancy, beings made of crystalline structures that hummed with internal light. They were the richest species in the galaxy, controlling most of the trade routes. And then there were hundreds of others, small species, young species, ancient species, all of them here to decide Earth's fate. The High Arbiter, a Velborn named Threnix, spoke first. His voice echoed through the chamber, amplified by technology Hyun-Woo didn't fully understand. Ambassador Park, you have heard the charges. Humanity stands accused of aggressive expansion, technological recklessness, and violation of the non-interference protocols. How do you answer? Hyun-Woo took a deep breath. He had prepared for this moment for months. He knew what was coming, but he had to try anyway. High Arbiter, honored members of the Council, he began, his voice steady. Humanity rejects these charges. We have expanded only into unclaimed systems. We have developed our technology through our own research and hard work. We have never interfered with the development of pre-spaceflight civilizations. You move too fast, said a Krell representative, its voice like grinding stone. 300 years ago, your people were confined to a single planet. Now you claim 40 star systems. You develop new technologies every decade. You create artificial intelligence that rivals the work of the architects themselves. This is not natural. Natural. Hyun-Woo felt anger rising in his chest but kept it controlled. We are ambitious. We are innovative. Is that a crime? It is dangerous, Threnix said coldly. The last species that expanded as rapidly as yours started a war that killed billions. We learned that lesson. Stability is more important than speed. Order is more valuable than innovation. You mean control, Hyun-Woo said quietly. You want to control how fast we grow, how much we learn, what we can become. The hall filled with angry muttering. Several representatives activated their translation devices louder, creating a buzz of hostile noise. You confirm our fears with your own words, Threnix said. Humanity is too aggressive, too reckless to be trusted with unrestricted access to the galaxy. We must act now before you become a threat we cannot contain. We are not a threat, Hyun-Woo said, but he knew his words were falling on deaf ears. This wasn't a trial. It was a sentencing. Threnix raised one long arm. The Council will now vote. All in favor of expelling humanity from the Galactic Council and imposing expansion restrictions, indicate your approval. Lights began to glow around the chamber. Green for yes, red for no. Hyun-Woo watched as the lights appeared one by one. Green, green, green. A few reds scattered among the smaller species, but mostly green. The final count appeared on the holographic display above the center of the hall. 174 in favor, 26 opposed. The motion carries, Threnix announced. Effective immediately, humanity is expelled from the Galactic Council. Earth's embassy will be seized. All human colonies beyond their current 40 systems are forbidden. Trade sanctions will be enforced by the Council peacekeeping fleet. This session is adjourned. Hyun-Woo stood alone as the representatives began to leave. A few of the younger species approached him, their expressions sympathetic, but they said nothing. Speaking to him now would mark them as troublemakers. Only one being approached openly. It was Su Bin-yoon, representative of the Norum Collective. She was half human, half Norum, a child of the peaceful cooperation that had existed between the two species for a century. I voted against this. she said quietly. It's wrong. It's cruel. But I couldn't stop it. I know, Hyunwoo said. Thank you for trying. What will Earth do? Hyunwoo looked at the empty hall, at the crystal walls that had witnessed this injustice. I don't know. But they've made a mistake today. They think they've contained us. They think they've put humanity in a box. And you don't think they have? I think they've just made 8 billion people very, very angry. The journey back to Earth took 3 weeks. Hyunwoo spent most of that time in his cabin, writing his report and trying to find the right words to explain what had happened. How could he tell humanity that they'd been rejected, cast out, treated like dangerous children who needed to be controlled? When his ship finally entered orbit around Earth, he could see the blue planet below swirling with white clouds. It looked so peaceful from up here, so small. The Council thought this little world and its people could be contained. They thought sanctions and restrictions would keep humanity in its place. Hyunwoo knew better. He'd spent 50 years in the diplomatic service. He'd watched humanity overcome every challenge, solve every problem, push through every barrier. Telling humans they couldn't do something was the surest way to make them try harder. He landed in Geneva at the headquarters of the United Earth Government. President Ji-won Choi was waiting for him in her office along with the entire cabinet. She was a small woman, barely 5 feet tall with gray hair pulled back in a simple bun, but her eyes were sharp and her presence commanded attention. Tell me, she said simply. Hyunwoo delivered his report. He watched their faces as they heard the news. Anger, shock, hurt. But Ji-won's expression never changed. When he finished, silence filled the room for a long moment. They fear us, Ji-won finally said. They fear what we can become. They look at our 300 years of space travel and see a threat to their 50,000 years of dominance. What do we do? Asked the defense minister. Ji-won stood up and walked to the window. Below, the lights of Geneva sparkled in the evening darkness. Beyond that, 8 billion people were living their lives, unaware that their future had just been decided by aliens who feared them. We show them they were right to be afraid, Ji-won said quietly, but wrong to make us their enemy. We will not accept these chains. We will not stop growing, learning, expanding. If they want to treat us like a threat, then we will become one. But on our terms, for our future. She turned back to face the room. Send a message to every nation, every colony, every human in space. Tell them what happened. Tell them the Council has declared us too dangerous to be free. And then tell them this: we will not bow. We will not break. We will build something they never expected. We will build an empire. Hyunwoo felt something shift in that moment. The old order was ending. A new age was beginning. The Council thought they'd solved their human problem. They had no idea what was coming. Earth went silent. For the first time in 300 years, humanity stopped talking to the galaxy. The embassies closed. The trade negotiations ended. The cultural exchanges ceased. When Council ships tried to contact human vessels, they received only basic acknowledgments. Yes, we received your message. No, we have nothing to discuss. The Council observers stationed near human space sent confused reports back to their governments. Something was happening, but they couldn't figure out what. On Mars, in the great red canyons that humanity had carved into cities, Fleet Commander Tae-Yang Kim stood on a platform overlooking the construction site. Below him, thousands of workers moved like ants across a massive metal framework. This would become the new Admiralty, the headquarters of Earth's military future. Tae-Yang was 50 years old with gray starting to show in his black hair. He had served in Earth's peacetime fleet for 30 years, exploring new systems and protecting colony ships. But peacetime was over. The Council had made sure of that. How long until completion? He asked his chief engineer. 2 years for the main structure. Another year for full operational status. Tae-Yang nodded. Make it faster. We don't have 3 years. The engineer looked nervous. Sir, the workers are already on double shifts. If we push harder, we'll have accidents. Then hire more workers. Build more shifts. Do whatever you need to do. Tae-Yang turned to face the engineer. The Council thinks we're sitting here feeling sorry for ourselves. They think sanctions will make us weak. Every day we waste proves them right. Around Mars orbit, construction continued day and night. Old civilian ships were being torn apart, their materials reused. The peaceful exploration vessels that had served humanity for generations were being melted down. In their place, something new was taking shape. Warships, hundreds of them. These weren't like the Council's ships. Human engineers had studied every weakness in alien vessel design. They'd learned from 3 centuries of peaceful observation. Now they were building something better. Faster engines, stronger weapons, smarter computers. Ships designed not for exploration but for war. Far from Mars in the cold darkness beyond Neptune's orbit, something even stranger was happening. The Oort cloud, that vast shell of ice and rock at the edge of the solar system, was changing. Massive construction platforms had been placed among the frozen debris. They worked silently, building structures that the Council observers couldn't identify. And on Titan, Saturn's largest moon, engineer Dayun Song was creating something that would change everything. Dayun was 35. Brilliant and stubborn, she had designed most of Earth's best colony ships, but President Ji-won had asked her to design something new. Not just a ship, but a world that could move through space. It's impossible, Dayun had told her when first presented with the project. So is faster than light travel. Until we figured it out, Ji-won replied. Make it possible. Now standing in the underground construction bay carved deep into Titan's ice, Dawon watched her impossible dream take shape. The world ship was enormous. 10 miles long, 5 miles wide. It could carry 10 million people and everything they needed to survive for decades. Food production, water recycling, power generation, factories, hospitals, schools, an entire civilization in one vessel. But it wasn't just a colony transport. Dayun had built weapons into its very structure. Point defense systems, energy cannons, missile batteries. The world ship could fight if it needed to, and when it reached its destination, it could transform a lifeless planet into a garden world in a fraction of the normal time. How many can we build? President Ji-won asked during her inspection visit. With current resources, maybe 3 every 2 years. Not good enough. I need 50. Dayun stared at her. 50? That would take 30 years. You have 12 years. Figure it out. Dayun wanted to argue, but she saw the determination in Ji-won's eyes. This wasn't a request. It was a survival requirement. I'll need every factory in the solar system. You have them. While ships were being built and weapons designed, another kind of war was being prepared. On Earth, in a building with no name in a city most people had never heard of, Director Jae-hyun Kwon was creating a network of spies. Jae-hyun was 48, quiet, and almost invisible. He had spent 20 years in intelligence work before the exile. Now Ji-won had given him an unlimited budget and a simple mission: learn everything about everyone. The council thinks we're isolated, Jae-hyun told his first class of recruits. There were 200 of them, carefully selected from every nation and colony. They think cutting us off from their networks means we can't see what they're doing. They're wrong. Over the next 2 years, Jae-hyun's agents spread across the galaxy. They traveled as traders looking for work. They hired themselves out as laborers, engineers, technicians. They married into alien families. They learned alien languages and customs. And they sent information home. They learned about the Velborn's internal politics, the old families that controlled everything and the young ones who wanted change. They discovered the Krell military's weakness. Their ships were powerful, but their crews were poorly trained. They relied too much on automation and not enough on adaptability. They found corruption in the Ascendancy's trade networks, officials who could be bribed, routes that were poorly protected, weaknesses that could be exploited. Every day, more information flowed back to Earth. Jae-hyun and his team analyzed it, looking for patterns, for opportunities, for threats. They built profiles of every major council species. They mapped power structures. They identified who could be trusted and who would be enemies. The council had no idea they were being watched so carefully. Their security was designed to stop armies, not individual spies who looked and acted like harmless civilians. On Earth itself, the transformation was even more dramatic. The planet's nations, which had united under the United Earth government, but still maintained some independence, now merged completely. There was no more arguing about resources or territory. Everyone had one goal: survival and strength. Factories that had produced civilian goods switched to military production. Scientists who had studied peaceful technologies turned their attention to weapons. Universities created new programs to train officers, engineers, and strategists. President Ji-won coordinated it all. She worked 18-hour days, managing 1,000 different projects, building the fleet, training the army, preparing the colonies. creating the intelligence network, and keeping it all secret from the council observers who watched from a distance. At night, alone in her office, she sometimes wondered if she was doing the right thing. She was transforming humanity from a peaceful, exploring species into something militaristic and aggressive. But what choice did she have? The council had made it clear that humanity would be controlled or destroyed. She had chosen a third option: resistance. 5 years after the exile, strange reports began to reach the council. Human ships were spotted in places they shouldn't be. Energy signatures were detected from the Sol system that matched nothing in council databases. Asteroids near human colonies were disappearing at an impossible rate. Threnix, the Velborn admiral who now commanded the council peacekeepers, reviewed these reports with growing concern. He sent scout ships to investigate. Most came back with nothing useful. A few didn't come back at all. "What are they doing?" one of his subordinates asked. "I don't know," Threnix admitted, "but whatever it is, they're doing it fast." He sent his report to the council leadership recommending increased surveillance. The council debated for months before deciding. By the time they agreed to send more observers, it was too late. Humanity's silent years were coming to an end. 12 years after the exile on Mars, Fleet Commander Taeyang Kim stood on the bridge of the first completed warship of Earth's new navy. It was called the Indomitable, and it was unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Sleek where council ships were bulky, fast where they were slow, smart where they were predictable. Around it, in orbital formations that stretched for thousands of miles, were 300 more ships just like it, and more were being completed every week. Taeyang looked at the display showing his fleet. 12 years of silent construction, 12 years of planning and building and training. The council thought humanity was sulking in isolation. They had no idea that Earth had been forging an empire in the darkness. "Admiral," his communications officer said, "Taeyang had been promoted to Admiral 3 years ago. President Choi is on the secure channel." "Put her through." Ji-won's face appeared on the screen. She looked older now, the stress of 12 years showing in new lines around her eyes, but her voice was strong. "Admiral Kim, the world ships are ready. Our agents are in position. Our production facilities are at maximum capacity. The time for silence is over." "I understand, Madam President. Show them what we've built. Show them that humanity doesn't break. We bend the galaxy to our will." "With pleasure, Madam President." The transmission ended. Taeyang turned to his crew. Young men and women who had trained their entire adult lives for this moment. They looked at him with eager eyes, waiting for orders. "All ships," he said calmly. "This is Admiral Kim. Activate combat protocols." Commander Grixthor of the Krell Dominion was bored. He had been patrolling the Terminus Nebula for 6 months, watching for illegal human colony ships. In all that time, he'd seen nothing but empty space and distant stars. The Terminus Nebula was a massive cloud of gas and dust at the edge of Council space. Beyond it lay unexplored territory, systems that hadn't been claimed by anyone. It was the perfect place for humans to sneak through if they wanted to break the expansion restrictions. That's why Grixthor's fleet of 20 warships had been stationed here. But 6 months of nothing had made him lazy. His crew was relaxed. They played games during their shifts. They didn't bother running full scans anymore. After all, humans were contained, sanctioned, and isolated. What threat could they pose? Then his sensor officer saw something. "Commander, we have a contact. Single vessel emerging from jump space." Grixthor looked at his display. One ship, medium-sized, moving slowly. "Identify it." "It's human, sir." Configuration matches their colony transport designs. Finally, something interesting. Grixthor felt his blood starting to pump. "Send the standard challenge. Tell them to power down and prepare to be boarded." His 20 ships moved into position, surrounding the lone human vessel. Grixthor wasn't worried. 20 armed warships against 1 transport. The humans would surrender immediately. The human ship responded. "This is Captain Minji Han of the independent vessel Prosperity. We are on a peaceful mission to establish a colony in unclaimed space. You have no authority to stop us," Grixthor laughed. "Tell her she has 1 minute to surrender or we will open fire." 60 seconds passed. The human ship didn't move, didn't power down its engines. "Time's up," Grixthor said. "Fire a warning shot across their bow." One of his ships launched a plasma bolt. It streaked through space, passing just in front of the human vessel. Then everything changed. The human ship transformed. Its hull sections separated. sliding apart in a carefully choreographed dance. Beneath the civilian exterior was something else entirely. Weapons, dozens of them. Cannons that glowed with energy. Missile pods that opened like flowers. Point defense systems that tracked his ships with eerie precision. "It's a trap," someone shouted. Grixthor barely had time to process what he was seeing before the human ship opened fire. Captain Minji Han sat in her command chair, watching the Krell ships scramble to respond. She felt no pleasure in what was about to happen, but she felt no guilt either. These aliens had supported humanity's exile. They had voted to restrict Earth's future. Now they would learn the price of that decision. "All weapons free," she said calmly. "Target their engines first. I want prisoners, not corpses." Her ship, which looked like a simple transport but was actually a Q ship, a warship disguised as a civilian vessel, unleashed its full arsenal. The new weapons that Earth's engineers had spent 12 years developing. Phase cannons that ignored enemy shields and struck directly at hull plating. Missiles that could change direction mid-flight, making them almost impossible to intercept. Point defense lasers that could track and destroy dozens of incoming threats simultaneously. The Krell ships tried to return fire, but they were too slow. Their weapons were designed for set-piece battles, not this kind of close-range chaos. Within 2 minutes, 5 Krell ships were destroyed. Their reactors went critical, exploding in brilliant flashes of light. "Commander," Minji's tactical officer called out, "6 Krell ships are trying to run. Let them go. Focus on the ones trying to fight." The battle lasted 6 minutes total. When it was over, 15 Krell warships were destroyed or too damaged to move. The remaining 5 had fled into jump space, running for help that wouldn't arrive in time. Minji stood up and walked to the view screen. In front of her ship, Krell escape pods floated in the darkness, survivors waiting to be rescued. She had killed hundreds today, but she'd let thousands live. That had to count for something. "Broadcast their distress signal on all frequencies," she ordered. "Make sure the Council knows where to find their people." "Jumping out now?" "Yes, to the rendezvous point. We have 9 more ships to meet and a lot more work to do." Her ship's hull section slid back together, hiding the weapons once more. To any casual observer, it looked like a simple transport again. Then space warped around it and it disappeared into jump space, leaving only debris and confused survivors behind. When news of the attack reached the Council 3 days later, panic erupted. Thrinix called an emergency session. Representatives from across the galaxy gathered, their faces showing fear for the first time in millennia. The humans weren't supposed to be able to do this. They were isolated, sanctioned, contained. How did this happen? Demanded the Krell military representative. 20 ships against 1. How did we lose? Their technology has advanced, Thrinix said grimly. He displayed the battle data that the 5 surviving ships had transmitted. "Look at these weapons. Look at the power signatures. This isn't anything we've seen from them before." "They've been building in secret," said an Ascendancy counselor. "For 12 years, while we thought they were contained, they've been preparing for war." "It's not just one ship," Threnix continued. "We're receiving reports from across our borders. Human vessels have struck at mining operations, trade stations, and military outposts. At least 30 attacks in the last week. All of them successful. All of them devastating." The chamber filled with angry voices. Some demanded immediate military action. Others urged caution. A few suggested negotiation. Threnix raised his hand for silence. "It gets worse. Our intelligence services have finally pieced together what the humans were building in their Oort cloud. Defensive platforms. Thousands of them. Any fleet we send to Earth will be destroyed before it gets close to their planet. Then we blockade them," the Krell representative said. "Cut off all access to their space. Starve them of resources." "They're not dependent on our resources anymore," Threnix replied. "Our economic analysts estimate that humanity's industrial capacity now rivals our own. They've been preparing for complete self-sufficiency." "This is absurd," someone shouted. "They're one species occupying 40 systems. We are 200 species controlling thousands of systems. We could crush them with overwhelming numbers." "Could we?" Threnix asked quietly. "We designed our military to maintain peace, not fight wars. Most of our ships are centuries old. Our crews have never seen real combat. The humans have spent 12 years building a military designed for one purpose, fighting us. And now they've shown they're willing to use it." The debate continued for hours, but no decision was reached. The Council had never faced a threat like this before. They had always been the strongest, the most advanced, the ones who made the rules. Now, a species they'd tried to contain was striking back, and they didn't know how to respond. While the Council argued, more attacks happened. On the edge of Velborn space, a human strike force destroyed 3 mining stations in one night, stealing years' worth of processed materials. Near the Ascendancy's trade hub of Nexus Prime, human raiders captured an entire convoy of merchant ships, taking their cargo and letting the crews go unharmed. Across the galaxy, Council military forces scrambled to respond, but the humans were always one step ahead. They struck hard, fast, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. And it wasn't just military targets. Human agents who had been living quietly among alien populations for years suddenly became active. They spread information, showing records of the Council's past suppressions. They revealed secret orders to destroy promising civilizations. They exposed corruption and lies. The younger species of the Council began to question their leaders. If the Council had lied about their past suppressions, what else had they lied about? If they couldn't protect their own space from human raiders, how could they protect anyone? 3 weeks after Captain Minji's attack at the Terminus Nebula, President Jiwan gave a speech that was broadcast across the galaxy. She stood at a podium on Earth, with the blue planet visible through the window behind her. She looked directly at the camera, and her voice was calm but firm. People of the galaxy, my name is Jiwan Choi, and I speak for humanity. 12 years ago, your Council exiled us. They feared our growth, our innovation, our potential. They tried to chain us, to control us, to limit what we could become. She paused, letting the words sink in. We refused to accept those chains. For 12 years we have worked in silence, building our strength, preparing for the future we choose, not the future the Council would impose on us. You have seen the results. Human ships now patrol space that was closed to us. Human colonies will soon exist beyond the boundaries the Council tried to enforce. Human technology has surpassed what the Council thought possible. This is not a declaration of war. This is a declaration of independence. We will not submit to unjust restrictions. We will not accept second-class status. We will not be contained. To the Council I say this: leave us alone, and we will leave you alone. But if you try to force us back into your cage, you will discover that humanity is far stronger than you imagined. We are not your subjects. We are not your children. We are your equals, whether you like it or not. To the people of the galaxy, I say this: you don't have to accept The Galactic Council was breaking apart. In the great crystal hall of Station Unity, representatives who had worked together for thousands of years now screamed at each other. Some demanded humanity's complete destruction. Others urged caution. A few spoke quietly about maybe the humans had a point. Admiral Thrennick stood at the center of the chaos, trying to maintain order. His pale blue skin had taken on a gray tinge from stress and lack of sleep. For 6 months, he'd been dealing with the fallout from humanity's emergence. 6 months of watching his carefully maintained peace crumble. The solution is simple, growled the Krell military commander, slamming a massive fist on his desk. We gather our full military might and crush them. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier. We end this quickly. And how many of our people will die in this crusade? Asked a small delegate from the Orine, a peaceful species that had never fought a war. The humans have already proven they can destroy our ships. How many lives are you willing to sacrifice for your pride?
Pride?
The Krell commander's voice rose dangerously. This is about maintaining order. If we let one species defy us, others will follow. The whole structure of galactic civilization will collapse. Perhaps it should, said a quiet voice. Everyone turned to look. The speaker was Subin Yoon, the half-human representative of the Norum Collective. She stood calmly, though every eye in the chamber was now fixed on her. Counselor Yoon, Thrennick said carefully, you walk a dangerous line with such words. I speak the truth that many of you think but dare not say, Subin replied. She activated a holographic display. For 50,000 years, the Council has maintained peace and stability. But what does that mean? It means suppression, control, preventing younger species from reaching their full potential. Lies, shouted someone. Are they? Subin changed the display. Images appeared, destroyed worlds, burned cities, species that had been wiped from existence. I had these files retrieved from Council archives, deep archives that most of you didn't know existed. 83 species eliminated because they advanced too quickly. Another 200 kept in permanent development restrictions. Countless others manipulated, controlled, or suppressed. The hall went silent. Many representatives had never seen these images before. They'd heard rumors, but the council leadership had always denied them. The humans weren't the first species you tried to contain, Subin continued. They were just the first one strong enough to fight back. And that terrifies you. Threnix wanted to respond, but he couldn't. She was right. The council's secret files contained exactly what she described. It was justified as necessary for galactic stability. But looking at those images now, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Shame. The session ended in chaos. No decisions were made. The council was paralyzed by disagreement and revelation. Subin left the hall and returned to her private quarters. There, a secure communication device activated. Director Jae-hyun's face appeared on the screen. "Well done," he said.
"The files we provided were useful?"
"Very," Subin replied. "The council is fracturing. At least 30 species are now questioning their loyalty. A dozen have sent me private messages asking about humanity's intentions. Tell them we're building something better, something fair, something where species aren't punished for being ambitious. And is that true? Or are you just replacing one empire with another?" Jae-hyun was quiet for a moment. "I don't know. That depends on what we become when this is over. But right now, survival comes first. The council won't give up easily." He was right about that. While the public council sessions descended into arguments, secret meetings were happening. Threnix gathered the old powers, the species that had controlled the council since its founding. "We are losing control," a Velborn elder said. "The younger species are questioning everything. Some are even talking about leaving the council." "Then we remind them why they need us," Threnix replied. "We show strength. We end the human problem permanently." "How?" asked an Ascendancy representative. "They've fortified their space. Our scouts can't get close to their systems without being detected and driven off." "Then we don't attack their space," Threnix said. He activated a star map. "We attack their new colonies. The world ships they launched are spreading across the frontier regions. They're building settlements far from their core systems. Those colonies are vulnerable. We destroy them and we show humanity that defying the council has consequences." The others considered this. It was ruthless, but it might work. "There's another option," the Ascendancy representative said slowly. "We have contacts, species that exist outside council space, warriors, mercenaries, beings we've used in the past for tasks we couldn't be seen doing ourselves." "You mean the Scourge?" Threnix said. "Yes, they owe us favors from past agreements. If we lifted certain restrictions on their movements, gave them access to some of our space in exchange for destroying the humans." He left the implications hanging. Threnix felt sick at the suggestion. The Scourge were savage, brutal warriors who fought for glory and plunder. Unleashing them on humanity would result in atrocities. But it would also solve the problem. "Let's keep that as a backup plan," he said finally. "First, we try the surgical strikes against their new colonies." While the council plotted, humanity was expanding at an incredible rate. The world ships had reached their destinations. Each one carried 10 million colonists and everything needed to build a new civilization. They arrived at lifeless worlds and began the transformation. On the planet that would be called New Busan, engineer Da Yun-song watched as massive terraforming equipment descended from orbit. Within months, this barren rock would have an atmosphere. Within a year, plants would grow. Within 5 years, it would be a garden world. "It's beautiful," said her assistant, a young woman named Haewon Park. "It's survival," Da-yun replied. "The council tried to limit us to 40 systems. Within 2 years, we'll have 80. Within 5 years, 200. They can't stop us now. They'll try. Of course they will. That's why each world ship is also a weapons platform. We're not building peaceful colonies anymore. We're building fortresses. Every new world will be able to defend itself." It was a sad transformation, Da-yun thought. She'd spent her life designing ships to explore and settle new worlds peacefully. Now she was building weapons and defenses. But the council had forced this choice on humanity. If they wanted humanity to be a military power, then that's what humanity would become. Back on Earth, President Ji-won was dealing with unexpected resistance. Not from aliens, but from her own people. A protest movement had emerged, led by a man named Young-ho Seo. He was a professor of history who had watched humanity's transformation with growing alarm. "We're becoming what we fought against," he shouted at a rally in Seoul. Thousands of people had gathered to hear him speak. The council suppressed species because they feared them. Now we're building an empire based on military might. How is that different? We had no choice. Someone in the crowd yelled back. There's always a choice, Young-ho replied. We chose to respond with violence instead of diplomacy. We chose to build weapons instead of seeking peaceful solutions. We're letting our anger at the council transform us into something monstrous. The protests spread to other cities, other colonies. Not everyone in humanity was comfortable with the militarization of their society. Many remembered the peaceful exploration days and wanted them back. Ji-won watched the protest footage in her office. Her advisors wanted to suppress the movement, but she refused. Let them protest, she said. Young-ho is right to ask these questions. We need people who remind us of who we were, so we don't completely lose ourselves in who we're becoming. But the protests are causing division at a time when we need unity, her chief of staff argued. Division is democracy, Ji-won replied. I won't become a tyrant just because we're at war. If we do that, the council wins even if we defeat them militarily. It was a difficult balance, leading humanity in war while maintaining their values, building an empire while preserving freedom. Ji-won wasn't sure it was possible, but she had to try. Then news arrived that changed everything. Jae-hyun appeared on her screen, his face grim. Madam President, our agents in council space have intercepted communication. The council is planning to attack our new colonies. Surgical strikes designed to slow our expansion. When? Within weeks. And there's more. They're in talks with the Scourge. If the attacks on our colonies don't work, they plan to hire mercenaries to fight us. Ji-won felt cold anger settling in her chest. The council preached about civilization and order, but when faced with opposition, they turned to barbaric mercenaries. Contact Admiral Tae-yang, she said. Tell him to prepare defensive fleets for our new colonies. And activate Operation Revelation, are you sure? Once we release that information, there's no going back. They were planning to use the Scourge against us. We need the galaxy to see who the real villains are. Jae-hyun nodded and ended the transmission. Within days, every news network in the galaxy received the same files. Evidence of the Council's secret suppressions. Records of destroyed civilizations. Proof that the peaceful Council had maintained order through violence and fear for thousands of years. The revelation exploded across galactic society. Riots erupted on dozens L. The Scourge came from the galactic rim, from the dark spaces where civilized species rarely traveled. They were nomadic warriors who lived for battle, moving from system to system in massive fleet cities. For 1,000 years, the Council had kept them contained in their own territory through a combination of trade agreements and military deterrence. Now, Admiral Threnix had given them permission to enter Council space. All they had to do was destroy humanity. The Scourge fleet consisted of 3,000 dreadnoughts, each one larger than the biggest human warship. They were crude compared to Council technology, built from scavenged materials and powered by inefficient reactors. But they didn't need to be elegant. They just needed to hit hard and keep hitting until the enemy broke. Warlord Kaxazul led the fleet. He was old by Scourge standards, having survived 40 years of constant warfare. He looked at the intelligence files the Council had provided about humanity and laughed. These humans think they're warriors because they defeated some Council patrol ships? We'll show them what real war looks like. His fleet jumped into the frontier region where humanity's new colonies were spreading. The first target was a system humans called New Busan, where one of their world ships had landed 2 years ago. The planet now held 3 million colonists. The Scourge fleet emerged from jump space on the edge of the system. Kaxazul expected to find a lightly defended colony world, maybe a few patrol ships. Instead, he found a fully armed battle group waiting for him. Admiral Tae-yang had anticipated the attack. He'd positioned 30 warships in orbit around New Busan, with another 50 hidden in the asteroid belt. The planet itself had been fortified with ground-based weapons powerful enough to strike targets in orbit. Well, Tae-yang said calmly, as the Scourge fleet appeared on his sensors, that's more of them than I expected. His tactical officer looked nervous. Sir, we're outnumbered 100 to 1. Then we'll have to be clever. Tae-yang opened a channel to all his ships. Remember your training. They're bigger and they have more ships, but we're faster and smarter. Use that. Make every shot count. The Scourge fleet charged forward in a massive wave, their crude tactics relying on overwhelming numbers. Kaxazul expected the human ships to retreat or try to surrender. Instead, they separated into small groups and began moving in complex patterns. The Battle of Frontier's Edge had begun. Human ships darted between the larger Scourge vessels, firing precision strikes at their weak points. The new phase cannons could punch through the Scourge's heavy armor. Missiles tracked targets with sophisticated AI, adjusting their paths to hit vulnerable spots. But the Scourge had numbers. For every one of their ships the humans destroyed, they destroyed a human vessel in return. The mathematics were brutal and simple. Taeyang's fleet couldn't win through attrition. "We need to change the equation," Taeyang muttered. He studied the battle display, looking for an advantage. Then he saw it. The Scourge fleet was spread out, each ship acting independently. They had no overall coordination, no unified strategy. Each captain was trying to earn personal glory. "Target their command ship," Taeyang ordered. "All available firepower. If we can kill their warlord, the rest might break." 10 human ships concentrated their fire on Kaxazul's massive dreadnought. The Scourge vessel's shields flared and failed. Hull plating melted under the sustained assault. But before it could be destroyed, 3 other Scourge ships moved to protect it, taking the hits instead. Kaxazul laughed as he watched 2 of his vessels explode. "Humans, finally a fight worth having." The battle raged for 3 days and nights. Human ships fought with desperate skill, but the numbers were impossible. One by one, Taeyang's vessels were destroyed or crippled. Captain Minji commanded a carrier group, launching wave after wave of fighters to slow the Scourge advance. Her pilots were exhausted, flying combat missions for hours without rest. Many didn't come back. On the surface of New Busan, Engineer Daun coordinated the ground defense. The planet's weapons platforms fired continuously, destroying dozens of Scourge ships that tried to enter the atmosphere. But ammunition was running low. "We can't hold them much longer," she reported to Taeyang. "You don't have to hold them," he replied. "Just buy us another 6 hours." "For what?" "Reinforcements." Far from the battle, President Ji-won was making impossible decisions. She watched the combat reports from New Busan and felt each casualty like a personal wound. Thousands of her people were dying, but she couldn't send all her forces to help them, because Director Jae-hyun's intelligence network had discovered something worse. While the Scourge were attacking the frontier colonies, the Council was planning to strike at Earth itself. Admiral Threnix had assembled a fleet of 2,000 ships, intending to destroy humanity's homeworld while their military was distracted. "If we send everything to save New Busan, we lose Earth," Jae-hyun explained. "If we defend Earth and abandon the colonies, we show that we can't protect our people." "Unacceptable," Ji-won said. "I won't sacrifice either. Activate Operation Endgame." Her advisors looked shocked. "Madam President, that technology isn't fully tested. The risks are less than the risk of losing everything. Do it." Operation Endgame was humanity's most closely guarded secret. For 5 years, scientists had been working on a network of jump gates, devices that could create instantaneous passages between star systems. Normal jump travel took hours or days. The gate network could move entire fleets in seconds. It was dangerous, unstable. The test runs had shown a 20% failure rate, but it was humanity's only chance to defend multiple locations simultaneously. The first gate activated near New Busan. Space twisted and warped, and suddenly 50 fresh warships appeared in the system, having jumped instantly from their staging area near Mars. They struck the Scourge fleet from behind, hitting them while they were focused on Taeyang's battered forces. Kaxazul saw the new ships appear and felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Uncertainty. How had they moved so many ships so quickly? It should have been impossible. "Reform the line," he ordered. But the Scourge fleet was scattered, committed to their individual attacks. Trying to reorganize in the middle of battle was like trying to herd wild animals. The fresh human forces hit hard. They'd studied the Scourge tactics during the 3-day battle and knew exactly where to strike. Within an hour, 500 Scourge ships were destroyed. For the first time, Kaxazul considered retreat. But retreating would shame him. He'd rather die in glorious battle than live as a coward. "All ships, press the attack," he commanded. His warriors obeyed, throwing themselves at the human fleet with suicidal determination. More ships exploded. Space filled with debris and escape pods. Then a Scourge boarding party managed to breach one of the human carriers. They rampaged through its corridors, killing crew members and trying to reach the bridge. The ship was Captain Minji's flagship, Minji grabbed a rifle and led a defense team to repel the boarders. The fighting was brutal, close-quarters combat in the narrow corridors of the ship. She'd been a naval officer for 20 years but had trained in ground combat like every human soldier. Now that training saved her life. She killed 3 Scourge warriors before taking a hit to her shoulder. The energy blast burned through her uniform and scorched her skin. Pain exploded through her body, but she kept fighting. Behind her, her crew fought with the same desperate courage. "For Earth!" someone shouted, and the cry was taken up by others.
For Earth!
For humanity. The Scourge were fierce warriors, but they'd never faced opponents who fought with such coordinated intensity. The boarding party was destroyed. Minji collapsed against a wall, her shoulder bleeding badly but alive. Back in space, the battle was turning. The Scourge had lost too many ships. Their warriors were exhausted, and human reinforcements kept arriving through the impossible jump gates. Kakzul finally accepted reality. "All ships withdraw. We'll regroup and try again." But Taeyang wasn't going to let them escape easily. Pursuit groups harry them all the way to the system boundary. Make them pay for every mile. The Scourge fleet fled, with human ships chasing them and destroying stragglers. When the last enemy vessel finally jumped away, the system fell quiet. The battle was over. Humanity had won, but the price was terrible. Taeyang looked at the casualty reports and felt sick. 12,000 human sailors dead. 23 ships destroyed, 30 more so damaged they'd take months to repair. And that was just the military losses. On New Busan's surface, Scourge ships that reached the planet before being destroyed had killed 8,000 colonists. "Victory," his second-in-command said bitterly. "It doesn't feel like it." "Because it isn't," Taeyang replied. "We survived. That's all." On Earth, President Jiwon received the reports and felt her heart breaking. So many dead. So many families destroyed. And for what? Because the Council feared humanity's potential? But there was no time to mourn. Because even as the Scourge were being defeated at New Busan, Admiral Threnix's fleet was approaching Earth. The second battle was about to begin. Young Ho Seo watched from Earth's surface as the orbital defense platforms activated. Thousands of automated weapons, each one powerful enough to destroy a warship. This was what humanity had built during the silent years. Not just ships and colonies, but fortifications that turned Earth into an unconquerable forter.